Welcome to the Hundredfold Journey. We help people step out of religious bondage and into true abundance. We invite you to embark on a journey, a spiritual journey called the Hundredfold. At a Hundredfold, we are a group of people developing new thoughts, habits, and beliefs to understand our true identity, to live our life purpose, and experience the abundant life just the way Jesus did. Our mission is to provide support, encouragement, and resources to help you on your journey. The life you are meant to live is closer than you think. The journey is the destination, and your journey starts now. Good morning, Doug here from the Hundredfold Journey. Thanks again for joining us on this Grace Awakening Network program. The Hundredfold Journey is about freedom from religious bondage and into true abundance, because we want to know our true identity, to live out our life purpose and experience true abundance. And that's what this journey is all about. And we want to come alongside of you and provide the tools and resources on your journey. Because a Hundredfold is about a group of people who are looking to find their true identity, and by doing so, finding God's true identity. So thanks for joining us today. We're continuing in the series called The Kingdom Parables, which is found in Mark chapter 4. But the key verse that I'll be talking about this whole series is Mark 4:13. Then Jesus said to them, "If you can't understand the meaning of this parable, how will you understand all the parables?" And the parable he's talking about is the seed and the soil. We talked about that last week, and if you missed last week, please go back and watch that before you watch this, because that is the foundation of this series on the Kingdom Parables. However, with that said, I'm going to kind of have a quick review on what we talked about and go even a little bit deeper. So again, we're going to review last week, the seed and the soil. So remember, these parables are telling us how the kingdom works, right? These are kingdom parables. The kingdom of heaven is is the way Jesus would phrase it. So this is how it works today, right here, right now, which is in you. In Luke chapter 21, it says the kingdom is within us. So what we have to find out is how that kingdom works. And Jesus demonstrated that in the parable with the seed and the sower. And then what we'll be talking about today is the seed and shine, where we're actually a lamp, a light in this world. What's interesting as we review that parable is, and again, I covered this last week, but each of the seeds and the soil that the seeds go into, verse 15 says, but when they heard the word, and verse 16, and that's when the birds of the air took the seeds away. Verse 16, but when they heard the word, the word only went so deep and there was no roots. It couldn't grow. Verse 18 says, but when they hear the word, they grow for a period of time, but the cares of this world choke it out. And verse 20, but when they hear the word, it actually grows. So each one of these soils are hearing the same thing, the same word. And in my opinion, the word is about our identity, our true identity, and who we are and who God is. And when we believe that, then it will grow. And in verse 23, which is the seed and the shine, if any man have ears to hear, let him hear. So there's something very important about hearing, and then what we do with what we hear. And then that would cause that seed to grow. So here's some simple applications. For example, in the garden, there were two voices in the garden. Which one did Adam and Eve listen to, and what was the result, right? In Genesis 1:28, here's the voice of God. There were two voices, right? The voice of God says, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over everything, right? So that was the voice of God. Then the second voice was the serpent or the deceiver, right? And that voice says, did God really say, you must not eat from the tree in the garden? So which voice did Adam and Eve listen to? And what was the result? So what happened was the seed that God said was to rule and to reign, right? To be fruitful and multiply. When it went down to the belief, did they really believe it? And when a second word came, right, it was another seed that came. And what was the result? They believed the lie. They believed that they needed to do something in order to be who they already were. Because the deceiver said, hey, God's holding back something from you, and you need to eat this fruit so that you can be like God. Well, guess what? They were already like God. They just didn't believe it. So there were two voices. Remember, they heard, right? God spoke, God said, and then the serpent also said. So which voice did they listen to? Here's another application, and this is Jesus in the wilderness. He also had two voices. Which one did Jesus listen to, and what was the result? So there was the voice of God, and that was when Jesus was baptized. Notice it's Matthew chapter 3. And at the moment heaven opened, God's Spirit landed on Jesus, and a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, in whom I love. With him I am well pleased." So that was the voice of God. And then there was the voice of the deceiver. Notice Matthew chapter 4, right? So right after Jesus was baptized, he went to the wilderness. And in fact, the verse says that he was pushed, or not pushed, but dragged to the wilderness, right? So this was a test. And the deceiver came and said, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. And this picture kind of depicts the three temptations of Jesus, right? One was to eat, and one was to jump off a temple, and one was to rule. And in each time, Jesus heard the word from the Father that says, "This is my Son in whom I am well pleased." The seed dropped to his heart, and he believed it. And then the second voice came, the seed came, he heard it, right? But it didn't drop. He did not believe that voice. Unlike Adam and Eve, where they heard the voice and they said, "Oh, okay, I'm going to believe that." And then the result was they ended up not being ruling and reigning. And Christ uh, did not fall for that temptation. And then he ended up, right, being called the Son of God, and he had the Christ consciousness and was able to live out in victory throughout his life, thus setting the example for us of how we are to operate in this world, to listen to the voice of God, not the voice of lack, or you need to do something in order to be who you already are. Jesus knew who he was and could rest in that, just like we can and we should. So then the next application is today, right now, in this moment, we have two voices in the world today. Which one do you listen to, and what are the results? Because everything is vying for our attention. Everybody, the world is putting thoughts into our head. It's the voices that we hear, right? So which voice are we listening to? And again, there's two choices. The first one is the voice of God. And here's some examples of what we can believe if we choose to believe it. And this again is the seed. This is what we're hearing, and you're hearing my voice today, and my voice hopefully is expressing the love that God has for you and your true identity, which is, if you go back to freedom from religious bondage, we are one. There is no separation. As he is, so I am in this world. But then additionally, in First Corinthians, it talks about we have the mind of Christ. So we don't have to be fearful about those thoughts that come in because we have the mind of Christ. We can think the thoughts of Christ. Ephesians 1 says we're holy and blameless. We are the temple of God, and the Spirit of God dwells in us. First Peter says we have been given everything for life and godliness, and we have his divine nature. And Luke 17, the kingdom of heaven is within you. So these are all just many promises or voices that we can listen to, that we can hear. But then there's other voices, right? This is the second voice. There's always two: the world or the church. You are a dirty, rotten sinner, and you'll never be good enough. Not now, not yet. If you don't confess and repent, you will go to everlasting punishment, right? And there's a ton of other voices, right? That, you're sick, the voice of the doctor that says you're sick, the voice of your parents saying you're never good enough, the voice of your employer saying, you're fired. There's so many voices out there, but the question is which voice do we listen to? So here's kind of a visual of how this looks. So what we have our mind, our thoughts, and we have our heart, right? And it's not until that thought becomes a belief that the growth will come, right? So the seed is the thought, and the heart is the soil. So the mind is telling us what the promises of God are, knowing they are true for you. These promises are true for you, yes and amen. Knowing your true identity, you are the dwelling place of God. So you have these thoughts and you go, okay, that sounds great, Doug. Thank you. This is amazing. But then the heart has to believe that, and it has to come with no judgment. You're trusting that you have been given everything. So there's a heartfelt gratitude, which is an expression of the heart, and then there's rest, right? There's no anxiousness or worry, because there's two soils. The soils are either fear or love, right? So you can actually produce out of fear, or you can produce out of love. And what's going to produce out of fear is, for example, on the third seed that was planted, it grew for a period of time, but then it got choked out because of the cares of this world, right? So it did produce for a period of time, but then it was cut off. So here's a visual of what's happening, right? You've got a seed, right? It's in the thought, and then it needs to drop to your heart, because you have a bunch of thoughts that come in all the time, and you don't necessarily have to believe every single thought. A thought can be anything, but it's when that thought then turns into a belief, then all of a sudden that starts to grow. So there's the seed, right? So it drops, and now it's in the good soil. And Linda, this is a good time. You shared something before we started about the seed having to die. So maybe can you express what you said earlier, which I really loved, is that before that seed can actually grow, it needs to die. So can you describe that?
Yeah. The seed is a lot about our thoughts, what we believe and think about ourselves. And it's what you're meditating on. And that seed can be either positive or negative. It's what you believe about yourself. And when that seed drops into your heart, you're nurturing it with either fear or love. But the fear-based that's in your heart is coming from the old self, the old Adam, the concepts that you believe about yourself, what you think about yourself. And those are the things that fear-based is constriction. It doesn't feel good. You don't feel at rest. You don't feel at peace. And that's when you know that's the part that needs to die. And a seed can't grow unless it dies first. So when the seed comes into your heart, are you nurturing that seed with love or fear? And is that seed, is it fear-based? If it's fear-based, that's the old self. That's when you know that that's the old self talking. And that's the part that needs to die. You need to detach from it so that the good soil, the seed that you do want, that you want to change and become and be, whether it's healing or love or peace or anything, all of that is based and nurtured with love. And that's what grows. But the old self has to die. The old self is the old thoughts and beliefs, maybe what you believed about yourself. Maybe it's, I'm not worthy. Maybe it's, I'm always sick, or I never have enough money. Those are old self concepts because you don't believe that you are worthy. So that's a part of the seed that has to die in order for peace, abundance, love, joy, happiness can grow. And that part becomes your true self, the light that shines.
Love that. Yeah, very, very good. And that old self is, back to this other page, I'm a dirty, rotten sinner, and whatever the world might be telling us, that has to die. And instead, the seed of being holy and blameless in the temple of God, and knowing that, then all of a sudden your tree grows from a place of love.
Yeah, and the seed, you have to renew your mind.
Yeah.
Romans 12:2 says that to not be conformed of the world, what the world tells you, or the old self, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may know and discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect.
Love that. Love that.
So you need to know what the truth is first before you can,
Yeah,
for that seed, that's what you need to nourish on those thoughts, those truths.
absolutely. Because you will produce that which you hear and believe,
True.
right? So again, we hear a bunch of things, but it's not until it becomes a belief about ourself that it then manifests. And again, there's four, again, going back to the parable of Jesus, there's four different soils that we've already explained, but yeah, you will produce what you believe. So if you believe you're sick, then guess what? That seed will drop and you'll become sick. But if you believe that you've been given everything for life and godliness, then you can come from a state of rest. And now we go into the seed and shine, who we truly are. And I love the fact that right after this parable, the very next parable talks about the seed and shine. So just a reminder, you are the sower, you are the one planting the seeds because the seed is in you already. So don't think that the seed is out there, it's what the thoughts that you have and the seed that you plant. You're the one that is managing all of that. All right, seed and shine. So here's the parable. Mark 4:21. Also, he said to them, is a lamp brought to be put under a basket or under a bed? Is it not to be set on a lampstand? For there is nothing hidden which is not to be revealed, nor has anything been kept secret, but that it should come to light. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. And there's we just talked about the importance of hearing. Now, found it very interesting in verse 22. It seemed to me kind of complicated. So I went into the original Greek language, and what I found was interesting. This is the way it says it. No, for I am, which is concealed, except to make visible, nor to become hidden, but in order to come to visible. Now, that's a little awkward in the Greek language, but what this means is that I am, which is the name of God, and it's mentioned here in this verse. I am is the one that's concealed, but it's inside of us, like the lamp that is not supposed to be put in a basket or under a bed, but it's to be revealed. So Christ is telling us that he is in us, that we are the light, we are the lamp, and it's not to be hidden, but to become visible. It's to come out of us. It's that that tree that comes from the seed that comes out of us. So I felt that was really enlightening because it didn't make a lot of sense, but it's Christ who is in us to be revealed because we are the light of the world. Matthew 5 also says that you are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. And by the way, that word city is power, it's dunamis, a power. It's not to be, it can't be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. And then Luke 11 also says, no one, when he has lit a lamp, puts it in a secret place or under a basket, but on a lampstand, that those who come may see the light. So guess what, guys? We are the light of the world. It's in us, and it's not to be concealed. It's to be expressed outside of us, because we are the light of the world. We are Christ here on the planet right now. It's not going to be in the future, not going to be, heaven somewhere. Heaven is within us. So we get to experience Christ and heaven on earth now. Let that seed sink within you and die to the self of, no, that's not going to happen. That's not me. Yes, it is you. What word are you hearing? What voice are you listening to? It's the voice of truth. It's the voice of light. So while I read this, can you please look for what signifies light and darkness? And then we'll go to the next page and I have some questions. So 1 John says, if we say we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Christ cleanses us from our distorted identity. The word there is sin, but sin is distorted identity. And then the next verse, again, a new commandment I write to you, which thing is true in him and in you, because the darkness is passing away and the true light is already shining. And Linda, as you said, right, that old self is dying. It's passing away. That old Adam, those stinky thinking that we have, right?
Mhm.
It's dying. He who says he is in the light and hates his brother is in darkness until now. He who loves his brother abides in the light, and there is no cause for stumbling. But he who hates his brother is in darkness and walks in darkness and does not know where he is going, because the darkness has blinded him. So this is talking about light and darkness and how we can distinguish what realm we're pulling from. Are we pulling from fear or love? And those verses describe that. So add as a metaphor, what does the lamp represent? So Linda, I'll just throw that out. What does the lamp represent as a metaphor?
It's yourself, your state of being, yourself. It's the concept of yourself, what you believe is
Yeah.
true of you.
Yes. And as a metaphor, what does the light represent?
Um, uh, it's the truth of who you are.
Yeah.
It when it becomes of you, it that's what happens. It's like it's the light. It shines out of you.
Right. and maybe to help describe that is, what does light do?
Um, It's, you become, more of your true self, and it's it's the love, it's the peace fulfillment. It's that which you were created to be, and it shines out of you. It's God Himself.
Yes, yes. And it reveals, right? It disperses the darkness.
Hmm.
It disperses the fear, right? When the light shines on who we truly are, then it disperses that fear, and we can now live and operate from love. So so then what do we do with this light, as it talks about in these verses, right? We're not to be put under a bushel or under a basket, but a city that's set on a hill. So what do you think the role of that light is in regards to ourselves and also the world?
Um, well, it's the truth of who you are, and you become one with it. Then it's your guidance system. It's, you live in the truth and you're free.
Right. There you go. I like that word, free. Set free, because you now see the truth, right? Because all those other voices are coming from a place of fear and darkness. Um, you know, you need to do this in order to be who you already are. But the light tells us that we are a child of God, that we've been given everything for life and godliness. Yeah. So then we have to ask ourselves the question, how good is God? The way you answer that determines your life experience. So, how good is God? He's given us everything for life and godliness. So allow that seed to drop, to believe it, and then you will grow. You will bear fruit. And back to the First John, we will love our brothers. We won't be in judgment. We will love them unconditionally, because we know that we're unconditionally loved. So that's it for this morning. Next week, we're going to talk about the seed and sleep. And then, of course, you can always reach out to us on the Hundredfold Journey through email at gmail.com, or on our website. And there's a QR code that you can go to and access our website for more information. So thanks for joining us on this Grace Awakening Network program, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.